Hello and welcome everybody to Civil 360. My name is Veer Pratap Singh and I welcome you all, my dear friends. In this particular session, we shall be discussing on the modern Indian history test series. Why? Because the UPSC, just try to understand, modern Indian history has been weighted by the UPSC over the years very much importantly. Why? Because if you go through the PYQs, you shall be understanding the importance and the relevance of modern Indian history. The UPSC has been consistently over the years asking questions pertaining to the modern Indian history. And that is why understanding the things as to how you actually need to solve the modern Indian history, even if you do not, even if you do not have the adequate level of readings and all, yet you need to solve it. And we will, in this session, we shall be understanding through the common practices, through the common understanding, that how we can actually solve these particular questions. Okay, but prior to this, let me just tell you that what can be the range of questions that the examination can ask it to you here. So for that, we need to understand that what was the syllabus, what is the syllabus of the UPSC of modern India. For example, when we are talking about history, so UPSC is giving two statements in the history. The first one is going to be the history of India. UPSC is telling that, my dear aspirants, we are going to ask you questions pertaining to history of India. And second, they are telling Indian national movement. Now, here in the history of India, the UPSC is telling that here in the history of India, there will be all the ancient history, medieval history, and the modern history. All of the three are going to be there here. But when we are talking about the modern Indian history, okay, so here there is the Indian national movement. They have specifically mentioned it. Why? Because here they will be asking questions pertaining to this. Now the idea is that what can be the range of questions. So here through this statement they are telling that we'll ask you questions pertaining to ancient, medieval and modern, everything. But here they are talking specifically. So whenever they are asking questions in the modern Indian history, they might be giving more specific. Okay, they might be more specifically emphasizing on the Indian national movement questions. So they might be asking those questions. So that was the scenario. So when we talk on this aspect, so what do we understand? That when we talk about the Indian national movement, what can be the range of questions that can be asked by the UPSC? So just understand, whenever we talk about history, what do we know about history? That history is what? History is about cause and effect. Okay, so when history is about cause and effect, what do we understand here? That when we are talking specifically about the Indian national movement, what can we say? That even in the Indian national movement, there would have been certain causes of Indian national movement. So even they come within the range of questions for the UPSC. So any specific cause or any general causes, now in that general causes, that particular general cause could become a specific question of the UPSC. Even in the effects, okay, so what do we know? You generally have learnt about Indian national movement. That is the era of nationalism in India. Okay, that what were the reasons for the rise of nationalism in India? Where did nationalism rise? What were the activities that were done under nationalism? Who were the personalities associated with nationalism? Which were the political associations associated with nationalism? Within nationalism, there was INC. Within the common masses, who were they? Within the nationalism, there was INC and its activities. So moderates and extremists, they are going to be there. Okay, so everything associated here, they can be asked as a part of question. Moreover, also the effects of nationalism can be asked to you. Okay, the effects, that is going to be the Indian freedom struggle. So on the Indian freedom struggle also multiple questions can be asked. So you have read everything, but the idea is that when you correlate that everything with the syllabus, then you have cracked the UPSC mindset. Okay, so here when we are talking about the effect of Indian national movement, it was Indian freedom struggle. And within the Indian freedom struggle, what can we understand? That when India was fighting for its freedom, that is when we gave the Purna Swaraj aspect, that is when we started fighting for our freedom, right? The Purna Swaraj. So here also what do we understand is that in after the Purna Swaraj, there was a civil disobedience, round table conferences, the Congress provincial ministries, the August offer, then all of those things. So from 1930 till 1947, whatever were the things that are going to be there, so they are going to be a part of Purna Swaraj, they are going to be a part of the Indian freedom struggle. So they can also be asked here in this particular exams. So that is how we actually need to dissect and break this particular scenario here. Okay, so that is the scene. Now let us go with the questions. Let us read the first question. So the first question here, it is that the first question is, consider the following statements. Always after reading this, you need to read the directive, because many a times many aspirants forget to read the directive, and that is where they, I'm sorry, that is where they go wrong. So what of the statements given above are correct? So we need to find the correct one. Warren Hastings introduced a dual court system in each district comprising of civil court and a criminal court. Okay. In the criminal courts, European judges presided over trials without any assistance from the traditional Islamic legal experts. All right. Okay, traditional Islamic legal experts. The Regulating Act of 1773 led to the establishment of the Supreme Court of Calcutta during the Hastings tenure. Okay, so here it is generally told what? The question, it is in context of whom? It is in context of Warren Hastings. Now, when the question, it is in context of Warren Hastings, so what was the time period of Warren Hastings? 1772 to 1785. Okay, 1785, this was the tenure of his time period. Now you are totally aware about the socio-economic political scenario that prevailed during that point of time. Okay, now just think of it. Now just think of it, that what could be the answer here. Here let us assume that Warren Hastings introduced a dual court system in each district comprising of civil court and a criminal court. We do not know. Okay, unaware of it. All right, so okay, maybe and maybe not. Then the Regulating Act of 1773 led to the establishment of the Supreme Court of Calcutta during Hastings tenure. We do not know, but what do we know during Hastings tenure is that they had majorly control over Bengal, because they had established the dual government of Bengal, and yet it was time for them to have a full control over India. Yet there was the Mughal Empire, yet there were many Islamic dynasties that were there. But here what are they saying? In the criminal courts, European judges presided over the trials without any assistance from the traditional Islamic legal experts. Now, wouldn't there have been a single incident where the British, okay, we accept the British judges were there, but wouldn't they have, the area that was Islamic in nature, wouldn't they have spoken to Islamic legal experts for criminal aspect? Would they have imposed the British law here when yet they were not fully controlling and fully authoritative? Would they have done that? Obviously not. So that is why here this particular statement, it is sounding extreme. So we can eliminate the second one. We do not know the first and third are correct. We are eliminating the second, and if we eliminate the second, so what do we know? The answer is C. Why? Because if you have read, you might know that this both are correct, that Warren Hastings was the person who is going to introduce it. Second is the Regulating Act, it brought up the Supreme Court in Calcutta. Okay, so the first one is like that. Now the second one, the term Nabob in colonial India, it referred to what? Did it refer to a local zamindar who resisted British rule, a British official who returned from India with immense wealth, an Indian merchant who traded with East India Company, or a Mughal noble appointed by the emperor? What do you understand by the term Nabob in colonial India? Now, UPSC has a very keen interest in asking you questions pertaining to, the aspect of, the aspect of terminology. So UPSC very well does that. So here you do not have to confuse yourself with the scenario. Okay. So what you need to here, when we talk about Nabob, what do we understand? Nabob means something. Just find the similarities. Okay, just find the similarities in the phonetics. Nabob, here what are they talking about? Zamindar, okay, who returned home with a, then merchant, then noble. So what is this? This is basically classes. So in the options itself, they have hidden the answer. So they are talking about classes. So Nabob, it would somewhat be associated with the class. Okay. So Nabob, either it can be the noble class, either it can be the Nawab class, either it can be the villager class. Okay. Either it can be the middle class, either it can be the lawyer class, and whatever it is. But Nabob is something of a class. Now in the Nabob, what do we know? That Nabob, here what you can see is that Nabob is most associated with noble or Nawab. Okay. So when we are doing the phonetics here, so many of the aspirants could select a Mughal noble appointed by the emperor. This is there. Okay. But here when we are associating it, so merchant will be removed, zamindar will be removed. So we are eliminating. So options remaining are B and D. Now many of the aspirants could be going with this. However, here there was, now go with the essence also. Nabob, if it is noble, so go with the essence also. What is the essence? The British official who returned from India with immense wealth. Okay, in India, who was a noble who had a lot of wealth in India was considered to be a noble. So similarly, if a British official went from India back to England, also they will be known as nobles itself because they had a lot of wealth. Okay, so here Nabob, it was given to a person who looted wealth from India and took it back there, which increased their stature. Okay, so that is what we can understand.